Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Backlot Banter movie review. My name is Tucker Izzo. Today, I'm joined by two ass-loving co-hosts, Abram and Tanner Dykstra. Today, we're here to review Bottoms, Emma Seligman's follow-up with Rachel Sennott to Shiva Baby, movie we've all seen and liked, and now we've seen Bottoms. It's not Fight Club, it's Bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get them confused.
Better.
We'll talk about that. But if you have seen Bottoms, or if you're a fan of any of the movies that are coming out, you can join our Discord. We got a link in the description where you can join that, and also comment talking about some movies. I don't know, just fucking do it. Like, it's not that hard, you know.
Comment down below if you're a bottom or a top.
Or a switch.
Ding.
Hello.
We got one of those back there. Look, Nintendo. All right, boys, we've seen Bottoms. Tanner, you actually got a chance to see it.
Yes.
About a week early, because it was in limited release, and now a couple schmucks like us had to wait till a wide release. But Tanner, what are your thoughts on Bottoms?
Well, it has been over a week now since I was graced with the ability to see Bottoms even earlier than like the limited release. We saw it early on the Tuesday, and I loved it immediately. I mean, Abram, I read your Letterboxd review, and I have to concur, and I will concur with basically everyone's thoughts that I've heard on Bottoms, is that I've never laughed more consistently at a movie, or at least I have not laughed more consistently at a movie in years, probably. It is, I mean, frankly, it is up there with laughs per minute as something that the movie that I credit to be the greatest comedy of all time, in my opinion. That is 1980's Airplane. It is that level of like joke to joke hitting ratio.
Sure.
And it's a tight 90 minutes. You have some fantastic leads, some fantastic writing, some fantastic direction. Oh, just across the board, the cast is picking up every bit of slack that could be possible, and I'm loving it every step of the way.
Abram, you said you had a line prepared, so you can say that now if you want. Just give me a little in, or you can give me your thoughts on Bottoms.
Well, I mean, what I was gonna say, and I've sent it to you already, is that Bottoms is 2023's Barbie.
Okay.
A movie you like?
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I love Bottoms. I think that by you sort of paraphrasing my Letterboxd review, my thoughts are already in the review.
Oh, sorry.
In some manner of speaking, I would say that for me, this is the most I've laughed at a film since the one that Film Twitter is thankfully behind completely, which is The Nice Guys.
Oh,
sure.
Yes,
of
which
course.
I absolutely fucking love. As much as I love this movie. I think what's so great to me about Bottoms is not only is it consistently funny, you're totally right, it's also quite poignant, and it's obviously interested in inverting tropes, and it's interested in playing on stereotypes, and it's incredibly smart to that degree, but it also feels incredibly interesting. It doesn't really feel like we're ever taking the easy joke.
Sure.
I think that there is so much subtleism, to use a backlot banter word, in how we use the frame to tell jokes, and how we set up and pay off things 30-40 minutes later.
Yeah.
All in service of a movie that's about something. And I love a movie that's about something.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think that Bottoms is in this phenomenal position where its humor and its message work in tandem and work in very novel ways. I think it's a hard film to sort of take in on one watch, because I feel like if I were to scan the background of half of the shots, it would be something hilarious that I missed.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real feat in sort of like in the JPM, the jokes per minute, but also the JPSQ, jokes per square inch.
Ah,
that's good
interesting.
too. Yeah.
It's got a volume to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also really, really loved Bottoms. I think that what actually surprises me most about the comedy is that it does work on that subtle level that you're talking about, with interesting production design elements and background jokes that if you will notice and laugh even more if you're paying attention to. But I also disagree about the subtleism in a way, because I think this is also one of the least subtle movies that's ever been made. The amount of times they do the easy joke, but they do it a twist on it that makes it just, you know it's coming, but you don't know exactly how it's going to happen. That's consistent throughout the movie, and I think that is the jokes per minute element. Is almost every line, even if it is a serious scene or something serious is happening, there's always a punchline, there's always a twist to it, and that makes it consistently hit throughout. And I just really like how we're able to tell a very modern story through the most classic stereotypes ever. I mean, this is a movie where you can follow that 3-act structure as clear as the day is long, and it is 90 minutes like comedies used to be, and it is basing itself off of Fight Club, and it's recognizing that out the ass and back. And I just like how it's able to feel so fresh, even though we've seen all of these elements used before, but they are mixed up with a different writing team and style that are able to give it a fresh comedic flavor, because it's not afraid to be a comedy. It's not afraid to have almost every line and almost every scene be a joke. That doesn't really happen nowadays. It's just a flat out comedy, and you're supposed to laugh the entire time on every level.
Yeah.
It's
Tucker, sorry. Oh, go ahead, Abram.
well, I think the reason it's able to do that is because it establishes very early on this incredibly peculiar internal logic that that the film doesn't outright explain, but asks you to sort of get a feel for. I was making some remarks to Tucker as we were leaving the theater this afternoon, like, it's phenomenal that all of the football players never take their uniforms off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic that Marshawn Lynch is watching these girls break each other's bones and then just come back to school the next day as though nothing happened. The principal calls them, talentless gays or something over the PA.
He calls them ugly, talentless gays.
Yeah. And the film never really stops to question why any of this is happening. You just roll with it to the point where at the
There's
end...
a guy in a cage in the back of the classroom.
Yeah.
Tucker, thank you. I wanted to talk about the guy in the cage because that is the perfect encapsulation of the setup payoff and the jokes per square inch that Abram was talking about. Because that was the first time that there may have been one beforehand, but that was the first time I noticed like a background joke that we don't draw attention to immediately, but it's just something that I was laughing at while I also could be laughing at the dialogue that Rachel Sennott and Ayo Edebiri were having. And I was just like, I was turning to the people next to me. I was turning to our friends and being like, you guys see the kid in the cage in the back of the classroom, right? And then, of course, it doesn't pay off until later when, I guess, spoilers, Bottoms review, when that is like this ogre boy that is on the football team that they pit against one of the founding members of the Fight Club / self-defense club.
Yeah. It's an interesting example because to me the subtlety comes into how much the film is really willing to take its time, because then after he winds up and like breaks Hazel's neck, kicking her as she's in a puddle of blood in the middle of the gymnasium, the next time we see Hazel is a hilarious shot mid-needle drop of all of the friends together watching a movie, and Hazel's neck is like broken and she's lying on a sofa. And everybody's getting like popcorn and they're ready to do like a fun little girls' movie night.
Yeah, I mean, David Fincher movie club night.
Exactly.
Yes, literally. Yeah.
They're just like me for real.
I really think that the production design comedy of this is what pushes it to that next level, because it is a very well written movie, but you can tell there's care on another level here because that school is so weird. The amount of graffiti and whiteboard humor that's going on here, or sorry, chalkboard humor and poster humor and banner humor. Like these are elements that didn't need to be present, but the fact that you can like dart your eyes around and always feel like you need to be paying attention or else you're gonna miss and I know this one is drawn attention to, but the poster where it's like, smile, he might be watching you right now. It's like,
you're prettier when you smile. He could be watching you right now.
It's such a bizarre world that always keeps you grinning, so that when you laugh, you're always primed to laugh in this movie. And I think that nowhere is that better handled than in the charisma and comedic timing of our two leads with Rachel Sennott and Ayo Edebiri, who are completely in tune with one another, and they are bantering back and forth, and the editing is serving just bam, 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 that they're just mostly insulting each other and everyone around them for the entire movie. But they're such clever insults in a way that you're like, no one should say that to anyone ever. That always keeps you like, I don't know what's going to come out of these people's mouths.
I think the reason the performance is so effective is because this is also a very serious film. And I think that it's through performance that we're able, and through editing, that we're able to, in a second, switch switch things up. I
Yeah.
think the clearest example is when we're doing this sort of trauma dumping meeting of the Fight Club.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Rachel Sennott says like, okay, so who here's been assaulted?
Yeah.
And then it's played for a joke and our whole audience laughs, but then in a moment it cuts to wide and everybody raises their hand.
Yeah.
And I think what's so effective about the film is the way in which it raises very serious points and issues, and is able to not undercut them with humor, but have them roll through the humor. I think that's what's really interesting to me. We sometimes make a disparaging remarks about how a lot of modern films always feel like they shy away from their emotional beat with a joke. The joke is the release. But that's not really the case here.
I do think it is sometimes. And
Sure.
maybe that was me not having the pure laughs per minute that you guys were having. I did feel like sometimes there was an emotional scene, but I was ready for it to be undercut by a joke. And because it was mostly operating as a pure comedy, I expected that to happen. So I didn't think it was a problem. But I think that the balance it mostly works. And I think especially in those moments where you get a solid a solid serious bit, and then there's a tiny little like exclamation point on the end that is a joke. So it never lets you sit with the darkness that this movie does end up tackling. And I appreciate that it can introduce more serious elements, but then be like, look, it's still comedy. Like we're fucking around here. The characters aren't taking things too seriously.
I think that particular is definitely the writer duo that is Emma Seligman and Rachel Sennott. I actually saw just a little bit of Rachel Sennott's stand-up comedy
really?
on TikTok just like a couple hours ago while I was just mindlessly scrolling as I want to do. And you
Hour
talking
6.
about you talking about that really just like brings into focus for me, like her sense of humor is very much like, yes, it's goofy, it's silly, it's funny, it's irreverent, but it's all underscored by this like this understanding that she and many other women, particularly like Emma Seligman, have of being a woman in the modern era, being an LGBTQ plus individual in the modern era, and taking that as understood, and then just building jokes off of it as like, this is the world we live in, this is the experiences that we all share. So how can we laugh about it, and how can we creatively laugh about it? I was able to listen to a interview with director Emma Seligman on one of the podcasts that I regularly listen to, and she was talking about how her and Rachel wrote this when they were in NYU in 2019. So this has been when they were in college together. This is a brainchild of both of theirs.
This is really the La La Land of 2023.
Exactly, and it definitely feels like a very personal project for both of these, for everyone involved, frankly, but particularly for writers Emma and Rachel.
I think what's really effective about it is how it takes something like Fight Club and reappropriates Fight Club.
Yep.
There was a really interesting like micro discourse that went around on Twitter when that cover of, I think it was New York Magazine or something similar, and it had the cast like all dressed up, and there was like this text box on the cover that said like, it was like the raunchy lesbian incel comedy that you've been waiting for. And there's a lot of people talking about the idea of ascribing incel to this film. And I think what's interesting about Bottoms is, to me, I think that is fair, but I also think it's very intentional. And I think it's interesting how the film becomes this very interesting like jambalaya of reappropriated right-wing ideas. And I think that I think that's really fun, because I think that the film is very empowering in sort of its flippancy towards a lot of things. Yeah. And in how something like Fight Club, I love when we pull back the sheet over the empty things of pineapple juice. And I'm like, it's the fucking bombs from the end of Fight Club. That's great. It's great that the film is so confident in its sort of moral righteousness that it's like, we don't really need to belabor any points. We are right, and this is funny. And I think that that's really great. I think that this is a really great piece of interesting political commentary that doesn't get bogged down in sort of trying to defeat anything that it knows it's already beaten.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. We talked a bit about the Fight Club influences, and while that is, very obvious throughout the plot of the film. I think this is also a film that, in particular, wears a lot of its comedic influences on its sleeve as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's taking a lot of notes and a lot of beats from the classic high school comedies, but also especially the more irreverent ones that I'm not personally familiar with, but ones that, again, Emma Seligman shouted out in that podcast. Things like Drop Dead Gorgeous, a film called Jawbreaker, and one that I actually have seen, which is Not Another Teen Movie, which itself is that like early 2000s reflection parodying the high school comedies, high school rom-coms even, rather, of like the late 80s and especially the 90s. And this is even like a further parody, I guess. It really gets into like really interestingly examining the comedic landscape that we find ourselves in. And this is really why I love Bottom so much as a flagship for modern comedy that I love, contrasting it with a recent comedy we watched, like Strays.
Yeah.
Which I said was very much not my sense of humor.
Yeah.
And really reminded me of like looking back on maybe like Will Ferrell comedies of years past, and got me thinking about like my favorite comedians and how they are still sort of like the underdogs, the irreverent voices of comedy. People like Rachel Sennott and Emma Seligman now, but also more bigger names like Nathan Fielder or Tim Robinson, and how they have this very specific brand of comedy that doesn't feel like anything we've seen before, feels more postmodern, feels post-ironic, if you can call it that. And Bottom very, very much falls into that, while also just giving you good on-the-face jokes, on-the-face silliness, on-the-face raunchiness.
Yeah. The way that it works with classic teen movie tropes, I think, is maybe my favorite element of this. When you talk about the fact that every single fucking side character is just a one note, you know who they are, and they're going to lean into that trope, and they're just going to go for it. I think that the way that they treat it so seriously, as Abram was talking about, like, this is just the goofy reality that they live in, contributes to this feeling of, okay, I know what the jock is going to do, but then the fact that he leans all the way into it is even funnier. Or the girl that is crazy and is always screaming, like, that is her bit, and she always does it, and it's always funny. And I just like that we're reutilizing those tropes, but it is the consistency of the supporting cast, I think, is something that this movie really can hang its hat on, because the fact that we have a group of 12 girls in the fight club, but then a supporting cast around that includes teachers and the principals and moms and the couple of jocks that we focus in on. I really loved so many of the supporting performances, and one that I think I haven't heard anyone talk about, but is the sort of right-hand man to Jeff.
Yes.
He has some weird shots, because he is such the right-hand man, where even though Jeff is the focus of the frame, I don't remember his friend's name, is like Tim or something like that.
It's Tim, portrayed by Miles Fowler.
Miles Fowler has such funny comedic timing, because he's got this like, his face is just like, has a funny shape. He's like always doing a weird thing with his jaw, but he's like helping Jeff along in the dumbest and most simple ways, like wiping his chin or pushing his plate or whatever.
Yes.
And it's because this like C-tier character in the movie is being played with such like confidence in his simplicity that every time he's on screen, that joke worked for me.
Yeah. Quick anecdote about that, again from the podcast with Emma Seligman, is that she mentioned Miles Fowler's audition tape in particular, as like he sent in a scene where he was like, rescuing Jeff from the football field or whatever as an audition tape.
Oh my god!
And
when he licks the field, he's like, pineapple.
Exactly.
God,
she's like,
so
and this is emblematic of why the whole cast works. She said, we directed everyone to play it completely straight.
Yeah.
No one feels like they are above the material. No character feels like they're doing it in ironic fashion. They are all perfectly locked into the vibe and feel of the world of this film, and that's why it all is so cohesive and so funny and so lovable, and why I frankly am willing to and want to rewatch it as soon as I can, just because I want to get ingratiated back into that feel again, that comedic rhythm.
I think that one of my favorite performances is Hazel, because I think that Hazel Hazel might have the hardest challenge in terms of playing their material straight, because the shots of her under Jeff's car, and then it pans up to her having 3 like fucking dynamite charges and like a timer, is so hard to nail.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because she plays this sort of gullible fool so well. I think she even delivers the line off camera, but when we find out that Jeff is having sex with her mom, off camera, she's like, I thought that Jeff was her safe word.
Yeah.
She's just dumb.
No, it's when they're oh my god, it's when they're at the car wash thing, and she's moaning in the background for like 3 minutes straight, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, this is so strange. And then you pan down, and it's like, no, you use his name as Jeff. And it's like, oh, I thought Jeff was the safer. It's so fucking funny.
And that scene is a great example of the jokes per square inch, because at the same time we're also selling panties to old men.
To old creepy dudes.
Yeah, and one of the cheerleaders do like sliding down the windshield in the background.
Yeah, I also in that joke, it's not like a car wash or car wash a front for selling used underwear. It's just one cheerleader doing it. It's not like a whole team of them. It's just one girl like handing out the bags or whatever. It's I did.
And then that joke comes back when everything is super sad and it's 95% off the car wash, and she's one girl standing by like a really crappy car in like an empty park. I was like, what? This doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, why would it have stopped? Yeah, like, are no one interested in these girls anymore because the team is split up? Didn't even know about the team. It's so fucking weird.
Love the Avril Lavigne complicated needle drop as well. I wanted to ask, before we give scores, what is just like a favorite moment from the film from everyone?
So I want to highlight 2. I want to highlight a comedic moment, and I want to highlight a very serious moment, because I do think we also, and we have, but I think it's really important to underscore that, again, these serious moments and the emotional core of this film is as strong as the humor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The scene where, and it's so beautifully edited in parallel after Josie and Isabel have gotten together, when we have PJ making the move on Brittany, and Rachel Sennott realizes she's straight, or has to finally come to terms with what she's already known. And the way she sort of like, sorry, didn't really happen. It doesn't bother me. Whatever. Sit up, kind of turn around. And
she's like looking at her homework. Yeah.
I think that there's an incredible range to all their performances. That's emblematic of it. Probably my favorite joke though is when Josie goes up to the girl, and when they're trying to get everybody back together to go save Jeff, and she's like, I know you're a black Republican, but you're still the smartest of all of us.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that one. I love that one too, because that one just blindsided me. I did not see that coming at all, because she's like with these ugly, talentless gays or whatever. She's doing the Fight Club, the whole 9 yards, and she's like, I know you're a black Republican, but
God. I mean, that scene is just maybe the most wall-to-wall jokes in the movie, because I mean, you go straight from that to they're working on the bomb across the street, across the field, and you're finding that the pineapple juice is there, and they're trying to
make out with each other
to distract. Oh my God, it's so funny. But for me, one scene that I remember really liking in the trailers when they tap Jeff on the knee with the car, and that scene is just funny because of Jeff giving his performance, because that guy is just absolutely killing it every time he's on screen. But what really got me is when Jeff falls and like hearing a fucking pin drop, all the other football players like, Jeff's in trouble, and they come charging, and like some of them are like sliding over the hoods of cars in the background for absolutely no fucking reason, and then they like crowd around, they're like, oh no, what's happening? And then just the ramifications of that one they hit Jeff on the knee barely joke is so fucking funny, because then suddenly they like are beating up people in the night, and they went to juvie, and Jeff has his crutches when he comes in the room, and then he's on the field and he throws the crutches like that, like
dance.
Like that is what's so great about this movie, that one funny moment about Jeff getting tapped on the knee cascades into like 6 different jokes that play across the course of the next 5 or 6 scenes, and it takes such an acute comedic mind to realize the comedic potential that comes from ramifications. And I really, really adore that in this movie.
Go ahead, Abram.
Well, if I can, also another great... there's just too many great moments, but The emo kid who gets the who gets the
Yes.
fruit cup thrown on him, and then he opens up his notebook.
Like, that's it.
That's
This is the
He
last straw.
What he writes a plot to blow up the school.
Yes.
In like fucking like Slender Man sketch writing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great, and we have not mentioned Marshawn Lynch, who
I wanted to mention him. I was going to
it.
bring this up. So, I mean, the tear that he goes on when he like confronts them about
The lime
true
green
purpose-
backsplash of the kitchen.
yes. The tear. He just gets to like roll.
Yeah.
And that's something that Seligman talked about as well. Is that apparently he was very much like, I need to memorize my lines, I need to get everything down. And she's like, no, Marshawn, the best stuff comes when you're just spitballing, when you're just riffing, when you're improving. And you can feel that when he's talking about, y'all ain't tickling the pearl, y'all ain't doing none of that shit. The lime green backsplash is great. I also love the moment when he feels betrayed by the club, and so he writes feminism on the board and like scratches it out.
That is great, of course, because you have a shot that reveals that at first, but then it pans out and it says why every president has been a man and why it should stay that way. And it's just like the amount of chalkboard humor in this movie is fucking hilarious. It's like, who created feminism? And it's a name, a man, or another woman. And it's just like,
exactly.
They inserted like classroom humor in a way that I didn't know you could insert humor. I just really love the consistency of all that.
Yeah. Oh god, Bottoms is fucking great, dude. Bottoms is fucking great.
And
I can't believe that this is. Yeah, go ahead.
The way you can tell that a comedy successfully hit is when we're trying to outdo each other by naming our favorite moments, and we can't stop laughing trying to describe them. That is what. That's how you know that it fucking hit.
Yeah. It's really. I mean, the only thing I'll say is like it's kind of disappointing that MGM is sort of like only doing a somewhat limited release of this. Like even its wide release now is not anywhere near like a national rollout on any level.
Yeah.
Because I think this would be, and I'm sure it'll hit streaming and lots of people will see it and I'll see clips online and stuff like that. But in a year that like proclaims to be bringing back the R-rated raunchy comedy, this I feel is the crowning jewel of the year.
Definitely.
For comedies. Which is why I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 9.2 out of 10. I love this fucking movie.
There's no stakes. I'm giving it a 10. I don't care. I give it a 5 stars on
not?
Letterboxd. This is one of my favorite films of the year. I fucking adored it.
And you know what, Emma Seligman, Rachel Sennott, we'll be there for your next movie.
Absolutely.
I asked Abram a little question when we saw the faux trailer.
Yeah.
One simple question.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to see Fee and Fi before to understand it?